Yes, it will be. It is my honor to give a lecture here to all of my Myanmar friends, and especially in this time. So let me start to share my screen. See, how do I do that again? Okay. All right. So can you see it?
Yes, we can see clearly.
Okay. So basically today what I let's see. How do I how do is it oh there it is. Go back. All right. So um as Mil was mentioned that today my topic is about the upper plate structures in Western Myanmar. So this is actually a lot of the work that I have been working on together with my colleagues here in National Taiwan University, and also many friends in Myanmar. So so before I actually started, I would like to mention the primary contributors and collaborators. These include Professor Wang Yu, who is going to give another lecture next week, and of course Dr. Hong Wei Chang and Professor River Shen, who are both in National Taiwan University. And I have a lot of students working on these projects. Chongche, Yiwei, Chen Hong, Si Jie, Yuan Lu, and a lot of many of them visited Myanmar and actually visited several times. We all love to go there. And of course, like Mio was mentioned, my previous advisor, Professor Kerry C., who used to stay in Singapore. And we also have a few Japanese colleagues, Dr. Yuki Sawai-san and Shishikura-san, who actually has worked in Myanmar before as well. And of course, the most important contributor in all of our work are all of our friends in Myanmar. That includes So, Somin, Tura, Utan, Dintu, and many others who have joined the field trip and contributed to many of the things. Okay, so let's begin. First, let's take a look at the tectonic background of Southeast Asia, which I think many of you are quite familiar with. So here we actually have this Sonda block, which is, well, a lot of people are considering that part of the Eurasian plate. And here we have the Indo-Australian plate, which is subducting underneath the Sonda plate, Sonda block. With the so we have this primary plate configuration, and in Myanmar we know that it's actually a microplate kind of in between these two major blocks. So there is actually the Sonda megathrust, the plate boundary between the Indo-Australian plate and the Sonda block, and we also during this oblique subduction, there are two primary strike slip faults created by this plate configuration: Sumatran fault in the south, and also the Sagaing fault in Myanmar. Okay, so we all know that this plate boundary belt is prone to large earthquake and tsunami hazard. For example, I think many of you still remember that in 2004, we have this huge earthquake, magnitude 9 plus. And also in 2005, 2007, we also have some large earthquakes, not as large as this 2004 one, but they are still magnitude 8 plus. So this plate boundary is a very important zone with this earthquake and tsunami hazard. And then if we look, we will notice that further to the north, which is basically offshore Western Myanmar, we don't have this kind of information, at least for the recent decades. So that's definitely something we need to look into, and that's why we start to work there. So if we go to Myanmar, I think many of you are very familiar with that there are many, many historical earthquakes. Especially, we can see that in the eastern part along the Sagaing Fault, there are many, many historical earthquakes in the 18th and 19th and 20th century. For example, there is this big one in 1930 that basically the shaking damage actually damaged this big pagoda in Daegu. And if you go there, you can still see that. And because this top part of the pagoda is too large, so they actually built a small pagoda on top of this piece of the broken pagoda. So that's actually a very, very important remain to tell us the 1930 earthquake. So for the Sagaing Fault, there are so many historical earthquakes that we can understand and we can study, and we actually have a lot of information. However, if you go to the coast, the only historical earthquake along the this part of the trench, which is the Arakan Trench, is 1762, and that's the only historical large earthquake occurred in this place. And because it's in the 18th century, quite some time ago, so there are still some quite debate about this earthquake. For example, one of our collaborators from Japan, the Shishikura-san, he believes that this earthquake broke pretty much the entire Arakan megathrust with a magnitude of about 8.5, between 8.5 and 8.8. This is actually based on some historical documents. And in fact, Phil Cummings in 2007, based on this kind of result, he actually proposed that if this kind of earthquake occurred again, he can model some kind of large tsunami, and this sort of tsunami event will have some very serious damage in the western part of Myanmar, of course, and also the Bangladesh and the eastern coast of India. However, if we look carefully into the western part of Myanmar, as you probably know, in the topography, the western coast of Myanmar is actually quite complicated. For example, we have a lot of offshore islands here. This is the Ramari Island, and this is the Chiduba Island. These two large offshore islands are located in western coast of Myanmar. And other than these two large islands, we also have many, many smaller islands as well. So this kind of topography is quite complicated. And not only we have those islands, if we look even closer, even more carefully, we see that there are many marine terraces on those islands. For example, on the Chiduba Island, if we just look at the Google map, you actually see there are many, many marine terraces and very wide marine terraces on the eastern coast, and also many levels of marine terraces along the eastern coast. Now, why is marine terraces important or special? Because remember, we are talking about the subduction zone earthquake along the Arakan Trench, right? So I borrowed some PowerPoint slides from James Jackson. Let's take a look at a normal subduction zone situation. So in an earthquake cycle, in the interseismic period, then you can see that we have a we have a trench, and then the trench, the megathrust, the interface is locked, and then as the subducting plate going down, and then this interface is locked, it will create interseismic deformation of the upper plate. And then at some point, fault is loaded, ready for this megathrust earthquake. And then the rupture happened, the fault ruptured, and then the upper plate goes back, move back with co-seismic deformation. And then the upper plate will pretty much go back to its original position. So under this kind of normal subduction zone earthquake cycle situation, the upper plate, which is this one, after many earthquakes, topography should relatively stay the same. It shouldn't have a lot of uplift that create marine terraces. Therefore, going back to western coast of Myanmar, we see these islands, and these islands have a lot of marine terraces, which means that there is some kind of long-term uplift and even long-term deformation. And in fact, as I mentioned, you see that there are many smaller islands that can sort of continue to form this kind of anticline. So that also means that there are long-term deformations in western coast of Myanmar. Therefore, we start to wonder, was the 1762 earthquake really just a simple megathrust earthquake? And then, are there any kinds of upper plate structures? And what role did this kind of upper plate structure play in this area? So, in order to solve this question, this important question, so we decided to go visit these two islands. So in these two islands, again, this is the Ramari Island in the east and the Iduba Island or Maong Island in the west. In these two islands, we want to answer three important questions. Three important questions is, what role the upper plate structure play in first, 1762 earthquake, and second, are there any other geologically recorded earthquake events and the upper plate structures are important? And then three, are these upper plate structures have something to do with the long-term geomorphic development of this area? Okay, so let's begin. First, we have to fly there, right? So we fly to Ramari. I believe we fly into the Jiaoqiu airport. And then during the field trip, we have to try to use a lot of different transportations. For example, we can use trucks. We can use tricycles if the situation is appropriate. We even can use tolaji. We use tolajis to go to many places when the road condition is not so good. And also, remember, this is a coastal area. So we take boats, big boats, smaller boats. And then, of course, in places, we'll have to walk by ourselves. So in these places, what do we do? So first, we have to pay a lot of attention because we want to understand the coastal uplift and the long-term coastal uplift record. So we need to pay a lot of attention to the sea level indicators. So these sea level indicators, including biological indicators, and also such as the oyster reef in the left, corals, coral head, microatolls in the east, in the right-hand side, and also some erosional features like sea notch, wave cut platform, or shoreline angle. These all tell us a paleo sea level location, and we can use them to calculate the coastal uplift. Okay, so, and also because the western coast of Myanmar, the tide level is about 3 to 4 meters. So we also need to pay a lot of attention to the what kind of materials we are looking at. For example, oysters grow up to the high tide level, and the corals growing only to the low tide level. So we need to compare the right material to the right sea level location. And because of that, the survey work is very, very important in our work. So we need to do a lot of survey. In good weather, we need to do survey of like the marine terraces, the shoreline angle. In bad weather, we still need to do survey as well. Sometimes when the tide is coming up, my students are and Professor Wang Yu are still doing survey in this kind of conditions. Professor Wang Yu likes to climb up. So when we need to do the higher up survey, he will climb up. And then sometimes he even go into the sea to do the survey. So he has done a lot of things in the area. So what are our results? So first, let us see a site at the central western coast of Romery. This site is called Xinchuang. So Xinchuang, at this site we found these. This is a huge uplifted coral, and if you look carefully, you actually see that the top level of the coral is relatively at the same elevation. Means that this elevation is probably the low tide level before that coral was uplifted and killed. And then the coral is very important because we can collect these coral samples to do dating, to do radiocarbon dating, as well as uranium thorium dating. And also you can see that the corals have growth band. We can calculate the growth band and understand the age of the coral when it is actually died. So this particular and if we want to see more clearly, we can use X-ray to see this growth band. So this particular coral is very nice because we actually got a very, very detailed and sort of good age results. On radiocarbon, we know the timing is about this, but from much better uranium thorium dating, we actually got an age of something like 1759 CE, plus or minus 10 years. So we collected here. So if we count the age, the number of ring back to the surface, it actually gives us exactly the timing of 1762. Which is the year of the earthquake. So we are very confident that this particular coral was killed because of cold seismic uplift of the 1762 earthquake. So if we take a look at the coastal geomorphic profile in this particular place, coral that I mentioned is this one. So this one can be relatively fitting to the previous low tide level. And then we also found some oyster fossils that is relatively consistent with the previous high tide level, as well as the shoreline angle. So based on this information, we know that the 1762 earthquake actually have a co-seismic uplift of about 5 meters at these particular sites. This 5 meter is actually quite large. However, if we go to other places, the situation is relatively different. Example, there is a site in southwestern coast of